Thank you very much. It's an honor to be with you and a special group of people, the farmers. Nobody's done for farmers what I've done. Unfortunately, they haven't followed through. We made a deal with China. It was one of my best deals that I made. I made a lot of good deals, but we made the USMCA, Mexico, Canada, which was terrific. But we had a specific deal with China where they were going to buy $50 billion worth of farm product. And it's interesting how we got there, because when the negotiation was going on, and it was a nasty negotiation, and I said to the farmers, just stick with me because we're going to do it. They're great negotiators. They're not going to go that fast. Just stick with me, because you never had anybody negotiating for the farmers before me as president. And my people, I said, what are the numbers we're talking about? And they said 15 million, 15, not 50. I said, all right. So it's $15 billion worth of product that they were going to buy, because they've been taking advantage of the farmers for years. This was like a penalty to China. And I thought they said 50, not 15. So the negotiations were going along. We were getting close. I said, how are you doing with the 50 billion? No, sir, we're close to 15. I said, what do you mean 15? You said 50. I said, no, I want 50. They said, that's not what we said. We said 15. I said, that's okay. Ask for 50. Tell them we have to have 50 billion, not 15. And I got it. The problem is, big problem, that now they don't enforce it. I enforced it. Every single week I'd go into the office. I'd say, how's China doing? Because you have to live up to that commitment. I'd say, how's China doing buying the product? Good, sir, good. They're doing good. And they were doing good because they knew I was watching. I don't think Biden is exactly watching. Do you? Does anybody think that Biden is, let's check it? I don't think so. And it's a shame. And that number is way lower than it's supposed to be. So the first thing I'd do is I would probably, my first call, I'm going to call up President Xi. I'm going to say, you have to honor the deal you made. We made a deal. You'd buy $50 billion worth of American farm product, and I guarantee you he will buy it 100%. He will buy it. Second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say you have to give the death penalty to your fentanyl dealers who are sending fentanyl. You know, in China, they give the death penalty. They don't have a drug problem because they give the death penalty. But I'm going to say second thing, and this affects you also. It affects everybody. We're losing hundreds of thousands of people a year. Comes through the southern border, now the weakest border in history. It was the best border we ever had when I was there. We built hundreds of miles of wall and everything else, and it was the best border. Now it's the weakest. I had a handshake deal with him. It was going to happen very quickly, and then this side didn't do anything about it. He said, and he suggested to me, anybody sends fentanyl to the United States, it's the death penalty. They get the maximum penalty. They would have done it, and then we had an election that didn't exactly work out too good. And it was a disgrace, frankly. And that deal went, and a lot of other bad things happened, like Russia attacking Ukraine, October 7th, inflation. A lot of bad things happened, the horrible way we got out of Afghanistan. So many things happened that wouldn't have happened, but it did nevertheless. But as to the farmers, we have a deal in place that China is supposed to buy $50 billion worth of our product, and they are not living up to it, and they were living up to it. And every farmer I spoke to a lot of them recently in Iowa, and they're having the same problem. They're not doing well. They're not doing well. They were doing great during the Trump administration. I think you would say that. Were you all? I hope you. This is always dangerous to do, but I hope you'd say you were doing well, because you're not doing now. I'm hearing it from farmers all over the place, and one of the big reasons is they haven't enforced the deal with China. And that deal was really a penalty deal to China, because they took advantage of you for 25 years, and it was like a penalty. And, you know, Biden and Harris, they're never going to enforce anything. That group is a disaster. It's a disaster for our country in so many ways, but certainly the farmers are one of those ways. So I think either Rick, or are you starting off, Rick? Why don't you start?
Well, first of all, Mr. President, we really appreciate you being here as part of the Protecting America Initiative. We at Protecting America Initiative see China very clearly, as we know you do. China has quietly but strategically worked against us whenever we are distracted by wars or COVID. China goes in and absolutely tries to distract the American people. They work quietly. They go after our local and state politicians. They go after our manufacturing. And there is no question that they are looking to, at some point, leverage that investment and that activity. I've seen it very clearly at the UN, where the Chinese are very duplicitous. They have a permanent veto at the Security Council, but they also work with the G77 developing nations. They get money from UNICEF just to feed their people while actually acting like a superpower at the UN. They are duping so many people. We know from your administration, Mr. President, you were not duped by China. No. You saw them very clearly, but for the past 4 years, while America and America's Democratic-controlled White House have been distracted by wars, China is getting into our farmland. And we have to be able to see China very clearly. So we want to thank you for being here, and Lee is going to take us off into Q&A.
Well, thank you, Rick. Like Ambassador Grinnell said, President Trump understood the Chinese Communist Party threat and protected Americans from the CCP's attempts to infiltrate America. It is great to be here with the 45th and our next President of the United States, Donald Trump. China now owns 349,442 acres of agricultural land in the United States. That is up 82% from 3 years prior. America's food supply and the farmland that enables it is critical to our national security interest, especially due to China's aggressive ventures into the U.S. food supply. While in the White House, President Trump took on China in many ways that stood up for American farmers. In 2018, he signed a law requiring the federal government to review CCP purchases of land around critical infrastructure, airports, and military bases. That is why we need President Trump back in the White House to pick up right where he left off and go even further. Contrast that to Kamala Harris's lack of support for U.S. farmers and weak stances on China. At the time, then Senator Harris voted against President Trump's USMCA trade deal, voting against America's farmers. Harris also opposed President Trump's necessary tariffs against China, and most recently cast the tie-breaking vote for the Biden-Harris scheme that has sold our auto industry out to China. That's what brings us here today, to discuss what Pennsylvania farmers need from the leaders to combat the threat that they see every day from China. President Trump is here with us today to listen to those concerns, to offer his remarks on China's influence over our food supply. And President Trump, if it's okay with you, I'd like to introduce some of our panelists who are here
I'd
today.
love that, yes.
Our first speaker here is Todd Reamer. Todd is a cattle farmer from Westmoreland County. Todd?
My concern today is with foreign entities buying up American farmland while young Americans can't afford to buy a farm or even get started. Also, if I may, I understand that China now owns major meat processing plants. They hold the contracts on production barns, and they even own feed milling plants all in the United States. I believe that it is Americans should control their own destiny when it comes to food production and the future of it.
Nick Stafiri is a hay, beef, and pork farmer from Fayette County.
Hello, thank you, Mr. President, for having me, and thanks for the opportunity to be here today. The intersection between agriculture and industry, it's a tight-knit one. We need the farmers just like they want us to provide the energy. And responsible natural gas development should not be a partisan issue. It's a common sense issue. So I want to thank you again for allowing me to speak with you today. It's been an honor, and I really appreciate it.
So thank you very much, Nick, and it's great. So without your job, which is a good job, an energy job, but if you don't put Trump in, you're not going to have any energy jobs in here. They're not going to let you frack. They're not going to let you frack. You know that. she's never said frack in her life until just a short while ago when she realized her poll numbers were dying in Pennsylvania. They're not going to let you or anybody else frack. And so I just want you to be aware of that when you go and cast your vote. I'm not too worried about the people around this table, I must be honest, but you never know. But everybody's aware of it, and I think Pennsylvania's aware of it based on polling that we're getting. You can't let them do it, because I didn't realize you were so dependent. Even a farmer would have to be dependent on the energy, but you take that energy out, you take that income out, it's a whole different story for Pennsylvania.
Completely.
And we're not going to let that happen. We've got to win the election. Thank you very much. Great job. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mana Papafavare, the CEO of General Carbide.
Thank you so much. So again, my name is Mana Papafavare. I'm the president and CEO of General Carbide Corporation. We are a 56-year-old manufacturer of carbide and steel tooling components and assemblies for lots of industries that include oil and gas, ammunition tooling, and agriculture, to just name a few. We're a fully integrated supplier, so we start with our ungraded powders all the way to making our finished tools, which we've transformed over a period of years. And we're now a one-stop shop, but we still cannot compete against Chinese government-subsidized businesses. So I believe we really need to do three things. One, I think we need to incentivize our machine manufacturers and our farmers to purchase American machines with American-made components. Secondly, I think we need a stronger stance on China. You said it, that it should cost more to purchase components from China, not just more to purchase the materials, which is what we're up against now. And thirdly, we need to do a better job incentivizing those in purchasing to think about the value proposition, longer running machines in the field. That's really what we need to think about. So to end, I believe in the strength of this nation, Mr. President, but I also believe that you and only you are going to be able to bring back our independence
Amen.
and prosperity.
I agree. That's why you need tariffs. This is a perfect example. They undercut you, drive you out of business, and then they're going to put the price at double and triple. It's no different. It's been that way for hundreds of years. That's what they did with oil. Rockefeller would open up a station on every corner, and you'd have a gas station. Then he'd open up 3, and it'd cut the price so low, and everybody thought, oh, wow, what a great bargain. He'd put the one guy out of business, and then he'd raise the prices to triple, quadruple what it was. That's the old way, and it's no different with China or anybody else. That's why you need tariffs. We level it off, and now people are starting to understand it. Actually, I was watching Howard Lutnick and John Paulson, 2 of the great geniuses of Wall Street, actually 2 of the most successful people on Wall Street, and they're big on tariffs. They're saying Trump was right all along, and I did it. But that's exactly why. They put you right out of business, and then they'll sell the same product, but they'll be double the price of what you are and make a fortune. That's what they want to do, yes. Among other things. Can you tell the story of your daughter?
Yes, I'm sorry. The last thing I wanted to say is my hardest job is not running 3 businesses. It's actually being a mom to a daughter that is here with me today, Caroline Ray. She's 16 years old. Right there. Would you just raise your hand, honey, so that Mr. President can see? She's right there. She is not in school today, and she asked that she could be here and she could see you. I'm doing everything that I can to try to give her the truth every day. And I just wanted to say, and I told you that 8 years ago when you were running, and she was just 8 years old then, every night she would go to bed and I would kneel on the floor next to her bed and we would pray every single night for you. And every night she would speak out to God and she would say, "Dear God, please let Mr. Trump win, please." And the night of the election, of course, she had to go to bed early because she was in school. But at 2 o'clock in the morning, when we finally knew that you had won, I went into her bedroom. I scooped her up out of her sound sleep, and I was literally tears pouring down. And I said, "Baby, Mr. Trump won, baby. He won, he won." And she said, "Thank you, God. Thank you, God." And so she is here with us today, and I just wanted to let you know that we are still praying for you.
Thank you very much. Well, it's almost more important today. When you add the border, where we have millions of people coming in and from prisons and from mental institutions and terrorists and traffickers, human traffickers, drug traffickers, I believe it's more important today. We had a bad border then, and I fixed it, totally fixed it. In fact, it wasn't even a subject at the next election, but we totally fixed it. But that border was nothing compared to what's happened now. This border is so bad and so dangerous for our country. I think it's more important today. I think it's going to be the most important election in the history of our country. Thank you very much, and thank you, beautiful daughter. Thank you very much. It's a very nice story. Thank you.
Dave McCormick, known national security expert, a fellow former veteran of the 82nd Airborne Division, and hopefully our next senator here from Pennsylvania, Dave McCormick.
Thank you. Thanks, Lee. And Mr. President, thank you for being here. And, you know, a lot of bad things have happened over the last 3.5 years. It's a choice between common sense policies that get our economy back on track, create a balance in our relationship with China, get the upper hand again, and unlock our energy, versus a radical liberal agenda under Harris and Casey, which will take our country further in the wrong direction. I think I can say with a lot of confidence, Mr. President, the Pennsylvania farmers, the agriculture community here has your back. Thank you.
I think they do. Thank you. And you're right, David. Bob Casey, and I've been there for a long time, actually, 4 years, but a long time. He has done nothing for the farmer. He has not been there. He's 100% with the Biden vote, I guess just about 100% of the time. Bob Casey is not the right one. This gentleman right here, he's tough, he's smart, and he loves the farmer, and we're going to turn it around. But Bob Casey cannot help us. He has never done it. Not good for the farmer. So I think you probably learned that the hard way. Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank you, sir.
Darrell Becker is the Fayette County Farm Bureau president. This time I'd like to introduce Darrell Becker.
Thank you. As Mr. Zeldin said, my name is Darrell Becker. I will tell you that we all know that China has no desire to buy products from us. We know that from what happened in your last administration, where they didn't even want to deal with fair trade. In addition, imports of used cooking oil from China are flowing into the U.S. like never before to capture these biofuel tax credits. We know China's not our friend. China owns 384,000 acres of our farmland. That's up 30% in the last 5 years. And guess what? The American government can't buy farmland in China. They don't allow us.
That's right.
Can you imagine that? At present, the U.S. has a huge supply of soybeans sitting at a multi-year low price, sometimes being sold below production cost. Farmers are using reserve funds to buy and produce soybeans now. There's no cash flow available to them due to the low price. You know this is unsustainable. So soybean farmers definitely need our help. Sustainable aviation fuel also uses soy, canola, and other seed crops from American farmer, and this is also under attack. We are putting ourselves at extreme risk in supply chain, knowing that a huge amount of the herbicide 2,4-D and many repair parts for agricultural use are imported from China. How much risk can we absorb and rely on a country that is trying to replace us? We need to build domestic demand. Our government needs to invest in American agriculture. American farmers want a free market. The current administration has shown that they are not friendly to American agriculture. Every producer that I spoke to for this presentation resonated the same message. We cannot survive another 4 years. Mr. President, I'm sure that when you get elected, that my line would be, help us make American agriculture great again.
Well,
thank you, Mr. President.
We'll take care of it. We'll take care of it. It's not very difficult to do. We're just being ripped off by other countries, and not only China, by the way, but we're being ripped off at levels that nobody's ever seen before. And this administration has allowed it to happen because you were making probably the best you've ever done 4 years ago, 5 years ago. You were doing better. All farmers were. They were doing better than they ever did. And now they're doing very better. I mean, I hear more complaints from farmers than almost anybody, and that's the backbone of this country. So they'll be very happy for a long time to come, okay?
Can I add one more thing and say to you that we've seen the decline of the mom and pop stores. And what you're hearing is that we're seeing the decline of the American family farm. That's America. So, I mean, anybody that's not paying attention to what's going on needs to wake up and get out and vote. And we know who they got to vote for. You, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. I love your hat, too, by the way. I noticed it right away. Thank you very much. We'll take care of them. Your grandchildren will be farmers. And they'll be maybe doing better than you do, okay? Thank you very much.
At this time, we're going to introduce our final speaker, Kevin Sweeney, who's a cattle farmer from Washington County. Kevin?
Thank you. Mr. President, I want to thank you for your personal sacrifice for us and your family. Thank you. The issue that I want to talk about today in regard to China is solar panels. The current offer is $3,000 a month per acre per year for the next 30 years. That's a lot of money. Who's subsidizing that? Is our government behind these people that are offering us this money? Where's that coming from?
Well, they are.
I mean, that's a lot of money.
That's right. They are, and they're allowing China to come in and just dominate the industry. That's right. They're sending panels over. Many of them are very defective, very bad panels, but they're sending them over, and they are really putting a lot of people out of work. But that's amazing.
It's an issue.
That's a form of subsidy.
Okay, my concern is, what if one of these foreign entities come in, and even though they don't own the land, they buy that company and then directly have control of the lease or that land and are able to use it for whatever reason. My other concern is the federal government. What if, for public use, they come in and say that they want to take my farm and put solar panels on it? What guarantee do any of us have that the government, Big Brother, won't come in and do that to us? We need to know about that. That concerns me. In the news right now is the sale of U.S. steel to Japan. Should we have some sort of a strategic plan to keep some of these steel mills and to keep some of this stuff as a strategic reserve, whether it's minerals, not only oil, but coal, iron ore, those sort of things? You know, it concerns me that that's just going to go away to foreign countries. It worries me. I have a couple of tax concerns, one being the death tax. You know, my 4 kids, what's going to happen when I'm 71 years old when I'm not here? They're going to pay big money, or they're going to have to sell out, or they're going to have to go get solar panels to keep the property. So, you know, if you can do something about the death tax, appreciate it. So.
By the way, the death tax, as you know, in the Trump bill, you don't have to pay a death tax or a inheritance tax. And under them, they want that terminated. They want you to pay. And what happens, especially with farmers, you're sort of land rich but cash poor. A lot of farmers are land rich and you love it, but you don't always have cash. And you leave it to your loved ones. You leave it to your children, which you want to do. That's what the ultimate is. If you love your children. In some cases, you don't love your children. You don't have to leave them anything, right? But generally, you love your children. And you leave. You have no problem with your children. But, you know, you leave it to your children, and what was happening is people were going out borrowing a lot of money in order to pay the tax, borrowing from the banks on their farm, big liens on the farm, very smart banks that know how to do it, and the children would go bust, or they'd spend everything they could to pay the tax, and they'd live a very tough life and usually lose the land. I got rid of that. You have no tax to pay on these small farms and businesses. And it's a great thing. Nobody talks about it much. The fake news doesn't ever talk about it, but it's a tremendous factor. And I mean, it was one of the things that I was happiest about, because literally farmers are going out of business. Children, they take the farm from their parents and they have to go out borrow a lot of money, and they can't afford to do it, and they can't pay the interest rates. They end up losing the farm over a short period of time. So we got rid of the estate tax or the death tax. And now it will come back under play under Comrade Kamala. That's what happens. That's not good.
What about our capital gains tax? Are we going to keep that down?
Well, that's the worst. I mean, they have unrealized capital gain. How about that one?
Yeah, how about that?
Unrealized. So they want to give you a capital gain if the value of your land goes up. Nobody's ever heard of it before. It's a communist thing, you know. It's a communist thing. It's unrealized capital. You'll have every business person, every company leaving this country. It's called an unrealized capital gain. And it's a concept that's been talked about for years. I don't know if any country has even done it, but she wants to do it here. And, you know, come to think of it, now that I'm with farmers, it'll affect farmers probably worse than anybody.
We have all the minerals under us, which we own, and they're going to put a value on those. And even though we haven't taken
You know who's going to make a lot of money? Appraisers, lawyers, and accountants.
Well, I have 2 accountants. 2 of my sons are accountants.
They'll be very happy.
It's crazy.
I have some expenses regarding fuel. The only thing that helps me is the fracking and the money that I was able to get from that. It's allowed me to keep my equipment. It's allowed me to buy another farm adjacent to me. And I'm hopeful that the fracking continues, and I know it will, and I'm hoping we get more of it so that my kids won't have to be forced at my demise to sell the farm to pay the tax.
You'll be around a long time. Don't worry about it.
Thank you.
But it will not continue.
I'm not a worrier.
They get in, the fracking will not continue. I guarantee you that.
My concern in this environment is that small family farms in Pennsylvania are in peril from two sources. One is the foreign competition we've talked about, and the second, I believe, is the federal government. And we need to be left alone. Just get out of our lives, leave us alone, we'll figure it out. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you, Kevin. Mr. President, I know you're about to get on the road to an amazing rally up in Indiana, but before you leave, and I know Ambassador Grinnell had some final words, would like to turn the floor over to our next president, Mr.
Well, thank you
Mr.
very
Trump.
much. And it's been great. I love the farmers. I'm very comfortable with the farmers. I feel I know your business, but I haven't plowed quite as much as you. But I do know your business very well. We've had a tremendous relationship. I've always won with the farmers, and that's because I produce promises made, promises kept. Number one, your energy bill within 12 months will be cut in half, and that's my pledge all over the country. Beyond farmers, that's my pledge all over the country. We have more energy under our feet than any other country. We have, I call it liquid gold, and we have more than any other country. We have ANWR in Alaska, which the first thing they did, the Biden-Harris administration, everybody wanted it. It's the biggest. It could be as big or bigger than Saudi Arabia, and would have supplied Asia, would have supplied vast parts of the world, would have made more money than you could even imagine. We were going to lower your taxes, pay off debt. They terminated it. Reagan wanted it, couldn't get it. Everybody wanted it, couldn't get it. I got it. They were all set to drill, and the first thing they did the first week is they terminated ANWR. But I can get it back very quickly because I got it through Congress, and we'll get it back very quickly. They didn't terminate it through Congress. They just terminated it. Just absolutely ridiculous. But I'll have your energy bill down. Within 12 months, we'll have your energy bills throughout the country. I'm not just talking here. I'm talking all over. Air conditioning, heating, everything, we'll have it down by 50%, 5-0. And it won't even be very hard. You know, up in New England, they have tremendous energy costs, and a few minor changes and we can reduce it. New England is a disaster. I won't say they vote for Democrats so much anymore. I think we're probably taking that over because of energy and because of a lot of other reasons. But we're going to protect your fracking. You know, in my case, I was always for it, and in her case, she was never for it. She wants to defund the police, too. All of a sudden, she likes the police. Started a short while ago. I really like the police a lot. Now, she wanted to defund the police. She did things in Minnesota that were so bad. She was bailing out people that wanted to kill the police and were actually trying to kill the police and burning down Minneapolis. So we're going to do things the way you wanted. A big factor here is, with all of you as I speak, is energy in two ways. Number one, you want to be able to collect royalties and other things, or even have a job in energy. That's very important to help your farm. And the other thing is you got to keep the prices down. So we're going to do both, and we'll do it fast too. It'll be largely taken care of within 12 months. I predict within 12 months it'll be down 50%. And if they get in, your energy costs are going through the roof. Okay, they're going to go through the roof. You won't have a farm very long. I will tell you that. I just noticed behind me John Deere tractors. I know a lot about John Deere. I love the company, but as you know, they've announced a few days ago that they're going to move a lot of their manufacturing business to Mexico. I'm just notifying John Deere right now. If you do that, we're putting a 200% tariff on everything that you want to sell into the United States, so that if I win, John Deere is going to be paying a 200%. They haven't started it yet. Maybe they haven't even made the final decision yet, but I think they have. John Deere is going to, and anybody else that does this, because it's hurting our farmers, it's hurting our manufacturing. And if you do that, you're going to have a 200% tariff put on the product that you make in Mexico, right across the border. They think they're going to make product cheaper in Mexico and then sell it in for the same prices they did before, make a lot of money by getting rid of our labor and our jobs, and really a great name, because John Deere is a great name. I buy a lot of John Deere, tremendous. I'm one of their big customers. I buy a lot of John Deere product as a private person. But if they're going to do that, we're going to put a 200% tariff on everything that they want to send back into the United States, which means one of two things. Our country is going to make a lot of money, or they're not going to build, they're not going to open. And, or they're going to sell it to another country. They're entitled to do that. If they want to build in the country, in the United States, there's no tariff. You can go ahead and you can build in any one of the 50 states. You can go ahead. But if they don't want to do that, we're going to put a 200% tariff on John Deere. And you know what's going to happen? They're going to announce very shortly. If they think I'm going to win, or if I do win, they're going to announce that they're not going to build in Mexico. Mexico's taken a tremendous amount of our business, especially over the last few years with this group, because this group doesn't know what the hell they're doing. They have no idea what they're doing. Mexico is taking a lot of business, and a lot of it's done and financed by China. China is building massive car plants now in Mexico, and it's the same thing they're building. And a friend of mine builds car plants, and he said the biggest ones in the world are being built in Mexico. They're going to put Detroit out of business. They're going to put car manufacturing out of business in the United States. And I'm just telling everybody involved in this stuff, we're not going to rip off the United States anymore. We're going to put big tariffs on those cars that are coming in here at 100 to 200%, and they're no longer going to be competitive. So you better stay in Michigan, and you better stay in the areas that you're in right now. And what I really want you to do is come in and build your plants in this country and put our auto workers to work, because we've lost about 60% of our auto working business over the years. And we're going to get it all back, every one of them. We're going to get it all back, and we're going to get it back quickly. And we can control that so easily. So if they're building those plants in Mexico, which they're starting, if they're building and they wouldn't have done it with me, but now I guess they figure when they started, it was a little while ago, I guess they didn't even know I was going to run. They weren't too happy when they heard I was going to. But they're going to have to pay a tremendous tariff. But we're not going to let that happen. But John Deere has got to understand that if they build in Mexico, if they start closing plants, in this case it was in Iowa, they're going to close a big plant and a couple of them. And that's just the beginning. The problem is that's just the beginning. Then all of a sudden you'll hear in a year from now they're going to do another one. All of a sudden they're not going to be in the country anymore. They're going to have to pay a very big price to be able to sell that product into the United States, okay? So that's very important. And I appreciate everybody. I appreciate very much everybody. Just hang in there. And I know it's not been pleasant. But the first thing I do is I tell China, you got to start buying. China's not buying like they're supposed to under the agreement. And I'd say, China, you have to start buying. I'd like to, if I can, Lee, I'd like to have a few questions, if you want, from the media in the back. A lot of media here. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, everybody, very much.